Oh, how the hits keep on coming in boating. Every time we're out here and we start filming, we pretty much watch somebody hit something. And today we're going to focus a little on that, some of the things that boaters will run into when they're out on the water. Welcome back, crew, to this week's episode of Boneheaded Boaters of the Week. Boaters running into things is not uncommon. In fact, we see it all the time. And that's because things can go wrong quickly when you're out there on the water, and the real problem is after you've hit something once, it's pretty common to see the boaters hit something more than once, because once you get a little flustered out there on the water and the boat gets a little out of control sometimes, if you don't go back out and reset yourself and reset your boat, you're gonna have a tough time, especially around the docks. This is why the golden rule in boating is to never approach anything any faster than you're willing to hit it, because if you're out there on the water long enough, you're bound to hit it at some point in time. Now, hopefully if you hit something around the docks, it's at that slow pace and the damage is just minor and you don't find yourself in a really bad spot. But unfortunately, one of the biggest problems in boating is so many people, when things start to go wrong in boating and their boat starts to get a little out of hand, the first thing they want to do is overcompensate with throttle. They think, my boat's not doing what I'm telling it to do, let me hit the throttle. And in some cases that's right, but again, the golden rule still applies. Even when you're trying to overcompensate with throttle to fight wind and current, you still have to make sure that you're not going to approach anything any faster than you want to hit it. In some cases, you want to make sure you're not approaching things that you don't want to hit altogether. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you can't use the throttle. I mean, most of you guys know I love them full send boys, but you've got to use it in the proper situation. Sometimes the situation will call for it, like when you just got to rip the band-aid off, kind of like we see here, and you've just got to power through the power line. Now you might be asking yourself, BG, how do we know how much throttle is enough? Well, unfortunately, there's no general rule. Every vessel reacts a little differently, and every vessel is going to take a little more power to make certain maneuvers. So the bigger the boat, you already know you're probably going to need a little more throttle, but you also need to know the bigger the boat, the more time you're going to need, and the more space you're obviously going to need to make certain maneuvers. So in a big vessel, a lot of times you need to make sure you've got plenty of time and start making your maneuvers significantly before you would if you were in a smaller boat. And speaking of making decisions on what you're going to do, that's another problem some boaters run into. They'll find themselves in a situation they've never been in, and all of a sudden have to make a decision, and they make none. I'm the first one to tell you, if you find yourself in a spot where you're not sure what to do, make a decision and make it quickly, but also make it deliberately. Because one of the worst decisions you can make sometimes is not making a decision at all. Now when I say make a deliberate decision, that doesn't mean, oh, we're gonna go out there and run the shallows. Let me go ahead and full throttle, full send this thing and see if we make it through. I mean, make an educated choice on that, but deliberately more means to me that if you're involving yourself around other vessels, for say, maybe you need to make a deliberate decision and let that other vessel know exactly what you're going to do, because if you don't, that's how people wind up in trouble. Because if you're not deliberate, the other boaters around you don't have a clue what you're going to do, and the next thing you know, you'll wind up in a little bit of trouble. Now, another common situation we see in boating where boats wind up hitting things, well, that's where people forget to put on the safety kill switch lanyard. Well, maybe they didn't forget, because so many people we see out here on the water, they didn't forget to do it. They freaking never do it when they're out there on the water. Kind of like this situation right here. Obviously, the first boat got away because nobody was wearing the safety kill switch lanyard, but you see our guy in the water here? Well, that's because his boat got away as well. The guy who went to rescue the boat that didn't have a safety kill switch lanyard on winds up falling overboard, and his boat takes off because he's not wearing it as well. I mean, how big does your sign have to be to understand that you probably should go ahead and put one of those on when you're out there on the water?
Welcome to Boneheaded Boaters. Those full send boys, they're not always in power boats. This guy's obviously a full send sailboat guy.
As we mentioned, guys, never forget that golden rule. Never approach anything any faster than you're willing to hit it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Boneheaded Boaters of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your story over here. Just like BD Outdoors, Captain Vereen, Miles Spit, OBI Mickey, Race Pilot Mac, Manny Fresh, and Adam Coolidge did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button.